Run it. I can't take no loss. I don't even know what it costs. I hit the ground, then I go off.
Dev, at least once you gotta hit the haram button, bro. Just have your finger on it.
Haram! What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to DNC on the Rise. Today we are here with a very special guest, Dr. Nick, who is the fittest doctor out there. So, without any further ado, Nick, please introduce yourself.
Before you throw me under the bus, that's the username, is the fittest doc. It's aspirational, like, you know, the fittest Nick or the fittest janitor, right? Like, just be the best version of yourself. Just the username.
Get a bit closer.
Yeah, just the username. I'm not over here claiming to be the fittest doctor in the world. So my name is Nicholas. What do you want to know? I've known Dev for a while, known Cesare for a while. I am a primary care physician, I'm definitely excited to be here and answer any questions you guys have.
All right. So the first thing I want to know is just how did you start getting in shape? What was the first way that you were exercising to build muscle or really shape your body?
So the YMCA, man. So I think I was like, I don't know, must have been high school. Yeah, it was for sure high school. And I was playing video games. All I cared about was playing video games. And my dad was, he was stubborn with, with fitness and with nutritional choices and kind of not eating processed food. And one of the things that he kind of harped on was, hey, you have to go to the gym, you have to work out. You know, this is kind of when you want to start it in life. And personally, I didn't care. Personally, I was, super obsessed with gaming and just enjoying my time as a teenager. But as we all know, dads have a monumentally transformative effect on sons' lives, at least good dads do. And so he got me to start going to the YMCA with him. And so I would go, he would have his routine. I would just kind of go to the weight room, completely fool around, not know what I was doing in any regard. Just hit the machines and essentially waste my time. And then there was definitely a point in time where, instead of resisting my dad's urging to go to the gym, I was more incentivized to just, hey, anytime he's going, I'm going to go with him, right? And I think that happened when I started seeing results. Wasn't huge results, but I definitely started seeing results. And so I would go with him, and then I would kind of do my own self-education. And by that, what I mean is men's health. So, man, I absolutely remember I had like stacks of men's health magazines like this deep, and I would read through them and try to learn as much as I could from older people in the space in terms of bodybuilding and lifting weights and whatnot. I am not gonna lie, I learned a lot from Men's Health, and they have a lot of routines in Men's Health that you can kind of follow and follow under your own direction, not with a coach. And so I would just follow a bunch of their articles and just try to do what every other teenager was doing at that age, right? Kind of get bigger, impress girls, be more physically imposing, all of that good stuff. So, that's kind of how it started for me, was a YMCA under my own direction. And then I remember there was some year, kind of probably a year or two into it, when I was at the YMCA and I was watching the TVs that are on in the background during a rest during one of my sets. And I saw these little Chinese girls doing Olympic weightlifting, like a little 110-pound, 120-pound Chinese girl, like clean and jerking 240 pounds, right? Snatching at an amount of body weight that was significantly more than them. And I remember feeling emasculated. Even as a teenager, I was like, yo, what is this? Like, how come they're so much smaller than me, but they're just throwing around more than my body weight? So I wanted to look into it. So I started to look into it and found a whole bunch of kind of resources to, hey, this is how you do a clean and jerk. This is how you do snatches. These are the accessory movements. And at that point, snatching was much more intimidating to me than clean and jerking. So for those who are not aware, a snatch is one consecutive movement of a barbell from the ground to above your head in an explosive movement, usually less than like 2 or 3 seconds. And a clean and jerk is essentially 2 explosive movements. One explosive movement from the ground to your shoulders, and then another explosive movement from your shoulders to the barbell over your head. So in my mind, the clean and jerk was the least risky out of the 2. It was, or the less risky out of the 2, rather. The snatch was more intimidating, seeing that, because in my head, I'm like, okay, you know, if I'm, I don't know, how heavy was I in high school? If I'm 170 pounds, 180 pounds, and I snatch 200 pounds over my head, what happens if my arms collapse? And then it hits my head, then I die, right? That's a nonsense I was thinking in high school. So I was definitely scared of snatching. I stayed away from it. I taught myself how to clean and jerk. I think it was definitely over a year ago on my Instagram. I actually posted a video of like one of my clean and jerks from the YMCA, in the YMCA. The technique, horrible. The weights, like unbelievably light, right? So I basically like posted a video of me clean and jerking at the YMCA, per my own instruction and my own teaching, versus like now when I'm clean and jerking like over 300 pounds. And the reason I posted that video, right, is just to like show everybody this isn't like night and day, right? It doesn't it's not an instant thing, right? It isn't about instant gratification. It's about putting in the work over many. I think the time differential between the videos was 10 years. So it was really just to show everybody kind of what was possible. So yeah, man, that's the answer to your question. Essentially, I started at the YMCA.
And then after you started at the YMCA, did you so everything that you, like when you first started, you were working out, was it just on your own? All the stuff was like self-taught?
Yeah.
Did you eventually come across someone that like taught you some other stuff, or an influencer or anything like that? Or was everything just information and data that you collected throughout the years?
Oh, are you saying like from the YMCA time to now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I started the YMCA, and then essentially I went to engineering school. So my undergrad is mechanical engineering at Michigan State University. During that time, I would still go to the YMCA, but I would also train in different martial arts, judo, jiu-jitsu. And the reason why I, at this point, kind of dived into training was because I kind of skipped ahead in the story. In high school, we had one of the pioneer curriculums in the entire United States where they actually integrated a martial art into our day. It was our 6th hour. It was Taekwondo specifically. They called it advanced PE. They're like, oh, you want to register for advanced PE? And then, I heard that this was Taekwondo, and, as a freshman in high school, I was like, absolutely, sign me up. And by the time I graduated, senior, I obviously received my black belt. So at this point, I was absolutely very invested in, I feel that martial arts teaches, doesn't matter if you're younger in high school or you're older, martial arts teaches everybody fundamental lessons that are applicable all throughout life. So now coming out of high school, I went to high school in Lansing, Michigan, and I went to, obviously, like I said earlier, undergrad at Michigan State University. So now I'm transitioning from, high school to college, and at this point I'm still lifting, right? But I'm definitely now very focused on martial arts and, like I said, judo, jiu-jitsu, and other combat sports. And so I continued to spar, to train, eventually finished engineering, moved to, got into medical school in Ohio, moved to Ohio. There in Ohio, first year of med school, like it does with everybody, it definitely kicked my butt. And because of that, I was looking for a release. I was looking for something to do instead of just studying all day. So I found Krav Maga, and I started training Krav. And the place that I started training Krav was called Ohio Krav Maga and Fitness. So, I'm over here just, I'm like, let me just enjoy my 1 hour out of the day of like when I could just kind of express myself physically. And the other 16, 17 hours, I'm having to be a nerd and just study all day. And the guys at that gym, Ohio Krav Maga and Fitness, there was one guy, I remember his name vividly, Eric Holtz. So he just kept, every time he saw me, at Krav and training, he would always say, hey man, you should come over to this corner of the gym where they were doing CrossFit. So that's why the gym's name was Ohio Krav Maga and Fitness, right? So I could not have resisted and rejected this man more significantly, more deeply, right? It's ridiculous because he was persistent, and I was just like, no, absolutely not. Why would I remember telling him, I was like, why would I CrossFit? Like, look at every single one of you at the end of the workout, at the end of the class, you all look like you went through hell. You all look like you hate your lives. You're on the ground, you're breathing hard, you're staring at the ceiling. You all look like you just hate your life. Why would I join that? So he kept on me, man, for like 3 months. He just ignored my rejections. He just kept coming, and so one day. He hit me he kind of asked me on the right day, you know, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I definitely had the kind of the mindset, the thought that, oh, okay, well, I'm fit, so I can absolutely do this. It crushed. Like, by the end of the class, I was on the ground staring at the ceiling. And this is somebody who, like, because in my mind, I'm like rationalizing, oh, I'm a black belt in Taekwondo, I've got training in this, blah, 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 Krav Maga. So, like, and Deb, I mean, actually, Cesar, you know this too, right? But like you get a certain amount of endurance, a certain amount of fitness from combat sports that you don't get with anything else. So because of that, you almost have this feeling of impunity that, you know, you can crush any challenge. And, you know, it isn't false, but it isn't necessarily true, right? CrossFit is a different beast in its own right. So I absolutely had my ass kicked in that one class. And then now I have this huge decision to make, right? I have to prioritize med school. I have to prioritize studying. But now I find something, I know something that I love, Krav Maga and combat sports and fighting. But then here's this other thing, CrossFit, that is essentially giving me the challenge of me being bad at multiple things. Because that's kind of the plus and the minus of CrossFit. There are literally so many movements, right? Yeah. So if you want to get in and conquer it, it's gonna take a while. But I definitely like the challenge of, like, you know, going into CrossFit. Some things I was really good at right from the onset. Other things, like, I don't know, handstand walking, I'm looking at, like, I can't do that. Like, this girl is over here handstand walking with perfect technique. So it was a nice little challenge, but I knew that I didn't have the time to dedicate 2 hours of my day to fitness. So with that, I had to make a decision. And the decision I ended up making was a rational one. It was not based on emotion. It was very logical. And essentially the way I was thinking about it was, you know, going to be in med school 4 years. I might as well develop the foundation of fitness in all regards, and then essentially build upon that through 4 years. And by the time that I graduate med school, you know, I'll have a level of fitness where I'll be able to just dive right back into any type of any type of combat sport, whether it's Krav, Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, whatever it is. You know, little did I know residency would also be an ass kicker. So residency after med school also kind of prevented me from getting back into combat training. But my theory that I had going into, you know, CrossFit absolutely held, right? That I not only maintained the level of fitness that I had going into first year of med school, but I absolutely built upon it in pretty much all the 10 different domains of CrossFit, like, I don't know, power, you know, flexibility, coordination, speed. Like, CrossFit purports to improve your fitness across broad time and modal domains, and personally I found that to be true. But I think what's more important is then you can then take that fitness and transfer it into so another term for CrossFit is called GPP. You guys have probably heard of this, right? General physical preparedness. Mm-hmm. So an assertion, you know, that CrossFit has held ever since it started is that a good CrossFitter, you can take them. They're not going to be perfect at anything, but they're going to be above the average at everything. Yeah. So personally, that's what I found finishing residency and then getting back into combat training with this guy who's an amazing teacher. And you know, that's hopefully a good answer.
Yeah. So would you say for someone that's like looking to get in shape and trying to get into like sports and working out, would CrossFit be a good place for them to start at? Because the way you explained it, it's like it bleeds into all the other aspects and the other things that you want to do as far as like boxing or Muay Thai or, you know, anything, any sports or anything physical of that manner.
So this is a good answer, or a good question rather. I've been asked this question on a lot of podcasts. The simplest answer is CrossFit is for anyone, but it is not for everyone.
Yeah.
You rock with that? So essentially what I mean by that is, you know, I have patients, I have clients all the time who ask me, hey, Dr. Nick, should I start to CrossFit? And I say, absolutely not. They're like, why would you say that? And I tell them, listen, the game anywhere in life is one with consistency.
Yeah.
It's not one with like being a flash in the pan, being a firecracker who, you know, you're going out for 2 seconds and then you're done. It's one by finding something you can be consistent with and then being consistent with it. What are the things you can usually, you know, be consistent with? The things that you enjoy. So personally, what I would argue and assert to people is I think resistance training fundamentally is necessary for everybody. Now, does your resistance training need to be CrossFit? Absolutely not. It could be powerlifting. It could be Olympic weightlifting. It could be calisthenics, right, where your body is the resistance.
Yeah.
It could be any number of different modalities where you've incorporated resistance training. So, you know, in my mind, I'm not, you know, I try to not look at things from an emotional standpoint. And and what I mean by that is even though I love CrossFit, who the hell am I? I'm just some guy who that's what I like. That doesn't mean that's what you should like. That doesn't mean that's what Dev should like, right? Everyone here, we all like combat. We all like sparring. We all like fighting. But guess what? In as much as I don't know that they're real men,
Worms.
peons. There are some men who genuinely do not like to fight, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's fucking haram. It is fucking haram. There's a lot of you so-called friends that I've invited to come train, and they refuse. I mean, I've had the excuse.
What's the excuse?
Bro, I've had the excuses of a man telling me, well, I might have to do a photo shoot, so I don't want to have bruises or any cuts on my face. What?
There goes your man card.
Yeah, there goes your balls, bro. You've been neutered now.
Yeah, it is what it is. I think it's interesting, man, that in my opinion, that's kind of the downside of living in such a civilized society, is that a lot of men forget kind of at least in my opinion, what the fundamental basis of manhood is. That's not to say that you need to be violent. That's not to say that you need to be out of control. In fact, I would argue that you're not a real man unless you can do physical damage and you have it completely under control.
Absolutely.
Like it's funny. So my instructor in Taekwondo in high school, Mr. Zeminski, obviously, you know, he was a black belt. He was our teacher. He would always say, yeah, like you need to, now that you have the skills, the flexibility, the strength, the speed, the stamina to defend yourself, you need to demonstrate ultimate restraint, right? You need to understand that you cannot just rely on your ego. You cannot rely on your emotions. If somebody's, you know, being a threat to you, you cannot retaliate unless you are absolutely pushed to that limit where you have, it's self-defense, right? Yeah. You have no other choice. So I personally don't understand men who, you know, run away from sparring and from combat, you know, and listen, I get it. Like, I guess people are scared of getting hurt, but like, that's like every time I fight this dude, right? Like, you know, I could sit over here and just fixate and focus on, I'm going to get my ass kicked, right? Or, and I feel like that's how people with a fixed mindset would think. Because in my mind, if you have a growth mindset, you're going to think, Dev's going to kick my ass, but I'm going to learn. I'm literally going to get out of that a little bit better than I was going in.
Yeah. And enduring pain is not, it's a good thing, especially with sparring. Like, it really,
it's a good reality check to have.
Exactly. Yeah. Because it shows you the results of your work ethic that you've been putting in prior to that. The weeks leading up to that sparring session, if you've really been putting in that work, you'll see that work come out into play. Mm-hmm. But if you haven't, it's really going to show. You're going to be gassed out after the first round. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've experienced that myself. You know, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I did a good amount. And going to the sparring session by the end of the first round, I'm like,
because you could have a whole lot of skill, but sparring is where you put it all together. Absolutely. So that's what's going to show you is the way I'm pacing myself. Yep. Am I appropriate? Right. Am I observing correctly? Because everybody has that. Because it all becomes different once you get hit in the face.
Exactly.
You know? Like you and I have talked about this a lot. But, you go into a sparring session, you have your plan, but, then you get hit. The classic Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face.
Exactly.
That sparring will show you, okay, now that you've been hit, how effective are you going to be at pivoting your strategy to still come back and potentially win?
Yep. And sparring is also to bring it back to that point of emotional control and being restrained. Is like during sparring, I've noticed, I haven't experienced it quite yet, but I've noticed that there are times where like the dude, two dudes will be sparring. One is doing significantly better than the other, and then the other guy starts to get emotional over it. Starts to throw haymakers. Starts to go out, try to just knock you out.
Sure.
That's just going like that right there is also going to be a result of you not controlling your emotions. You're going to get pieced up. You're going to get gassed out. It's going to end bad for you.
Absolutely.
Because you've had those excuses of people not wanting to train because they don't want to get bruises. They don't want to get hurt.
But I know what you're
you know where I'm going with this. So I had a guy who I invited to go sparring and go train, and he told me that, oh, nah, dude, I can't do that because if I get hit, I'll just see red and I might kill someone on accident.
I love it. I love any man who's like, I have no degree of combat training at all, and I haven't been in a gym once. But if you hurt my family, I'm gonna be so angry. I'm just gonna destroy everything. Like, no, you won't. I'm sorry. Like that's your imagination.
Exactly.
Because the other
delusion.
It's delusion.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And what I remember us talking about when I first brought this up to you is that that's why you need to get into sparring. Because if you think that if you get hit, you're just going to lose all emotional control. That's why you need to learn emotional control, and that's something that combat sports tends to really help you with.
Cesar, it's really funny that you bring that up because how many times I've noticed that myself. In fact, I love noticing that when you're watching other people spar. And like somebody like get emotional.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the thing with me, dude. You can hit me over and over. I'm not going to get, in fact, I feel like the more you hit me, the more I like, in my head, I'm like, this is a game of chess. Like, what's the next best move,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, like, what point in there is there's no point in getting emotional, right? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. And then Deb, kind of what you stated, right, about, you need to be able to keep your composure, right? Even kind of when you're down and out. I liken it very closely to chess, right?
Yeah.
Where you can, how many times, if you guys are familiar with chess, many times you can lose your queen. Mm-hmm. So your queen, your king, most important piece on the board. Your queen, most powerful piece on the board. You can lose your queen, and if you then get frazzled and emotional, then game is over. You're gonna get mobbed real quick. However, if you can keep your composure and broaden your field of perception, you can oftentimes. I've personally won games where my queen was taken, and all I had was my king and some pieces, and I've still and they had their queen, and I still won the game, right? So I think whether it's combat or any other venture that teaches you emotional control, it's ultimate. And it's funny, Cesare, that you mentioned, right, people being scared of combat. I have literally even had friends tell me, oh, Nick, like you work out, like clearly you work out. I want to go to the gym with you. I'm like,
do you?
Are you sure?
Because they want to go to the gym with you, and then you cater your workout to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or no. Devin said they don't know that I CrossFit. So in their mind, they're like, oh, Nick going to the gym is, I don't know, going on the bench press, doing some bicep curls. So there will be none of that. It will be paid. That's it, right? Yeah. So, and then, once you reveal to them, oh, yeah, I CrossFit, then and it's literally kind of same thing with combat sports where people have this perception of CrossFit in their heads that it's like unbelievably painful. And I know that the main kind of precipitant of that mindset, and it's both fortunate for CrossFit, and I'm talking about the company, and unfortunate for CrossFit, it's the CrossFit Games. Yeah. Like, true story here. A couple years ago, I bought my dad a gift card. It was a Christmas gift to a local CrossFit gym, and I was like, yeah, Dad, I want you to start, because, like I told you, right, he all my life, he's gone to the YMCA. He got me into the YMCA. So then when I evolved beyond that and I saw the value within CrossFit, and I was like, hey, I'm going to buy you this gift card. I want you to sign up. I know the coaches at the gym that I bought this for you to sign up. They are good coaches. These are people I trust.
Yeah.
My dad said, bless his heart. He said, I can't do that CrossFit stuff. It's too, no. He was like, I see it on TV. So what is he talking about? He's talking about the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
In that moment, I was like, CrossFit, the company, they lost another one because they're too focused on the CrossFit Games as opposed to, so I tell people all the time, right? There's CrossFit, the sport, which is what the CrossFit Games delves into. And then there's CrossFit training that actually, helps people lose weight, get off their blood pressure medicine, get off their diabetes medicine, gain more functionality, gain the ability to play with their kids and keep up with their kids. They are two separate and distinct things. I am not a CrossFit Games athlete. In fact, I don't ever want to be a CrossFit Games athlete because I see the type of training they have to put themselves through on a daily basis, 3 to 4 hours of training daily, being sore all the time, not ever being able to eat any junk food that they want, not ever drinking because all they're focused on is peak recovery so that they can go to the gym and use that peak recovery for work. I don't want to be a games athlete. I don't think everybody should want to be a games athlete, but I think that because that's so every single year around August when the CrossFit Games is, everywhere, then that's what people tend to focus on. And that's what's buried into their brain as what CrossFit is.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's so much more. And if people would just kind of get over their intimidation and fear of it and just step into the gym, I'm not going to lie to you, there will be a lot you can't do. You will, and then your biggest mistake is walking in the gym, seeing a dude like me and being like, yeah, I'm leaving. I can't compete with that. Like, that's stupid. Just do you, focus on you, right? And kind of build from there. Absolutely. And even now, there are still some things in CrossFit that I can't do. There are new movements introduced at the CrossFit Games, which then bleed down into classes. Like, there's this thing called a crossover double under. Basically, it's like with a jump rope. You need to be able to jump. Every time that you jump, the rope needs to go under your feet twice, and you need to be able to cross as you do that. That's in the CrossFit Games, right? So the moment that showed up in the CrossFit Games, the next year, you started seeing it in CrossFit gyms all across the country. And there are some athletes in gyms across the country who can do it. I can't do that. But in my mind, I see that. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's a skill I can't do, right? But I think, when people fixate just too much on people just like to fixate on like why they can't do things as opposed to why as opposed to the open door possibility of all the unknowns and like conquering something new. People just want to focus on I can't do this, and then because that's what they focus on, back up and think and ask yourself, what are they truly protecting there? They're protecting their ego.
Exactly.
It's that's all it is, right? They're not willing to leave their ego at the door and try something new. So it is what it is.
So I actually think that that's more of a buffer thing. They don't want to go into the gym and actually try out this new thing for them because, like you said, it's an ego thing. They use it as a buffer against hurting their ego.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. It's people. I understand that people are insecure about things, but it's so interesting. I feel like how much growth and how much potential shattered or potential prevented, has occurred in this world, but amongst people just because they've had their ego and they've been unwilling to test it, right? Unwilling to sacrifice it for. There's this really good quote. If damn it, God, can I remember this quote verbatim? Basically, the quote is basically if you're unwilling to be like a clueless student, you will never become like a graceful master. I think something like that. And I think that's so true, right? You need to be willing to put yourself through a period in anything, not just CrossFit, not just fighting, in anything. You need to be willing to look stupid. If I went into real estate right now, right, I wanted to, dominate the real estate game, guess what? There would be a significant amount of time where I would look like an idiot and be asking questions that other people would be like, that's a dumb question, but it's simply because I don't have any context, right? I don't have any knowledge in that. Yep. But that doesn't mean that I can't dominate in it, right? It's all about persistence and being willing to put yourself out there. So
just trial and errors.
Yep. And then I had a question in regards, going back a bit in time, to those couple of Chinese girls that you saw putting up a massive amount of weight, right? Mm-hmm. Now that you are where you are, would you be able to explain to your younger self
Sure.
how they were able to put up the weight that they did.
Yeah, absolutely. So at that size, right, essentially clean and jerking or snatching more than you weigh is all about transfer of energy. So I weigh like, I don't know, 215, 210 at my ideal body composition, which I'll be at soon, but like 215, 220, my max snatch is 285, right? So I can snatch a significant more than my body weight. And now asking myself, okay, how can I do that? It's not really a strength thing, it's a power thing. It's basically moving the weight to your center of mass, so actually, I'm not even gonna answer this question. Dev, from all you know with combat and fighting and punching, all power comes from the
Hips.
exactly. Same thing with clean and jerking and snatching, right? You're basically moving that barbell. If you watch somebody who's an Olympic weightlifter who's good with snatching, they are very patient. The bar rises, gets to their knees, they draw it back. They want to keep it as close to their body as possible. Once it gets to their hips, they explode. It's like a really good mantra I was taught way back in the day with timing is tick, tick, boom, where the boom is forcefully opening the hips, right? So, and then at that point, the bar is weightless and it's flying up. And then you basically, people will look at it and be like, oh, they have a really strong upper body. No, the upper body is doing nothing. Well, no, the upper body is only directing where that bar goes, right? Because you want it right over your head. But beyond that, the upper body really isn't doing much. Most of that energy came from the hips, and this is just transferring of energy until it's over your head, and then you lock out. And then at that point, yes, you do need to have a certain amount of strength to keep the lockout overhead. But it's not like your upper body actively push it up there. It's more like your upper body caught it in that position, and you're simply strong enough to keep a static position and keep it stable. So, yeah, man, it's all about just like, and I think obviously with combat sports, that's what it's all about. With Olympic weightlifting, that's what it's all about. Personally, what I found is with any sport where people are going to achieve the pinnacle of the sport, you need to know how to use your hips. You just do.
Yeah, I can confirm that. Even with like when I played football in high school, it was like a lot of everything. Like if on the offensive side of the ball, if you're running the ball, it's all hip movement. You got to pay. If you want to know where the guy's going to try to make a move at, pay attention to the hips. Same thing with basketball.
Yep.
And then on the defensive side of the things, like the cornerbacks, they have to drop back. First thing that they have to do when a guy switches like to another direction, open up their hips. It's almost every sport that I've like been a part of and even played just for fun with my friends. Everything just comes from the hips. It's always from like the lower body that you got to transfer that energy up.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny because I can usually tell, I've always been we could talk about this later if you guys want to, but the health at every size movement, right? I personally, my belief with that is you can be healthy at every size. You cannot be healthy at every weight. So what's a distinction there? The distinction is body composition, right? So somebody who is 10%, I don't know, or let's say a guy who's 10% or 11% body fat, even if they're 300 pounds, if they're legit 10 or 11% body fat, that's the pinnacle of health, right? And in my mind, the reason why I bring that up is because I like to look at people. I've asserted this for years, that I can look at someone in a grocery store and tell either A, are they physical, right? Do they do some type of sport? Are they athletic? And usually, I mean, let's be real here, with the current state of the United States, Walmart, most people, no.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything. And it's very clear by your body composition that you're literally doing nothing. Because your body composition is essentially a lagging indicator of your not only actions, but decisions as it relates to your metabolic health. So your body composition will ultimately tell me exactly what you're doing. So I just love, especially like with women, right? I've been able to like look at a girl in a store and be like, gymnast, cheerleader, track athlete, Olympic weightlifter, CrossFitter. When I was single, I literally have walked up to girls in random places in grocery stores and like struck up a conversation that leads into like 10 or 15 minutes of back and forth simply because I can just look at a girl and be like, that's a CrossFitter. Like I can peg. And then for guys, like, I'm straight, but but still, with a guy, you can still tell. The thing that I can't necessarily tell with guys what sport they're into, but I can always, and I've said this since high school, I can still do it now. I can always tell a guy who's combat trained. I can always tell a guy who's physically capable, even without him doing anything, him just walking, right? Because guys who are trained to fight, they literally, it's almost like they have a different presence, a different aura. It's like even how they move through 3D space, they're carrying their body in a different way. And I think, in my mind, right, part of it is because, they know that they need to basically be able to kind of switch into combat in terms of physically at any given moment. So you're not ever going to find them in a weak and compromised position. They're not going to be walking slouched over, looking like a victim. it's not going to happen, right? So yeah, man.
It's funny you said that, because I think it was yesterday, or it might have been even earlier today. We were talking about, I'm not going to put him on blast, but this individual that we do work with, and I'm just like, dude, he is such a victim. Yeah. Like, if I didn't know him, and I could tell from a mile away, like, dude, if he got into a confrontation, even with the guy that knows the slightest little bit of anything,
sure,
it's gonna be bad.
Yeah. This same individual, we were out like way early on in January of this year, and you and I had kind of reconnected at that point in time. But this individual had kind of he had never really lost contact with either of us.
Nah.
But we were discussing a lot of like mindset stuff and things like of that nature. And I went up to go to the bathroom. We were at a restaurant, and it was you who told me later on. You said to him, "Look at how he's walking. Just even observe just that."
Absolutely.
And he didn't really have a good grasp on what you really meant with that, right?
He didn't really, because you can't, like you said, like whenever there's someone that walks in a room that knows how to fight or that can hold their own, even you can tell, but just by the way they walk, the way they're even where they keep their hands.
But I think an even more nuanced perspective on it is that if you're one of those guys, you can tell. While exactly, like the guy you're bringing up, right? He's going to be like, "Oh, I don't see it. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" But even though he may not overtly and consciously be able to pick up on it, I guarantee you he's not messing with that dude. There's some part in his reptilian primal brain that is like, looks at that guy and he's like, "I'm not going to mess with it. I don't know what it is, but that guy threatens me. That man is a threat. Like, I am around him. He doesn't say anything disrespectful, but I just feel small."
Yeah.
Like, and it's because, there's a portion of your brain that knows that man can disassemble you, right? And he's never said anything threatening. It's just the way he carries himself. And, I think that, that's something that I've literally been able to identify since high school, even military guys. Right?
Yeah.
I remember just like seeing a military guy or somebody who's a black belt walking through the store. So my first job was a retail store called Meijer in Michigan. And that afforded me the opportunity to like craft this skill that I'm telling you, right? Just to watch, like, think about it. Meijer, big grocery store, I would see thousands of people a day, right?
Yeah.
And I would just make observations as people walk through space and like, and I think the primary component of it is posture. Personally, I've never understood people. No, I can't say that. I was going to say I never understood people who have bad posture. I understand what the cause is in men and in women, right? It's essentially weak tonicity, so their muscle tone in any specific regard across their body is not where it should be. But it's just, the amount of nonverbal communication between human beings. Most of our communication is nonverbal. Mm-hmm. It isn't that most of our communication is through talking and verbal. No, most of our communication is nonverbal. So if you're going to live your life, why are you going to live your life in a way where everything non-verbally about you, from your body composition and the gut that you're carrying to your inability to hold your shoulders back, everything about you says, "I'm a victim. Yeah, you can take advantage of me. I'm meager. If you push me, I'm never gonna push back. I'm gonna back down. If you come up to me and tell me that you want my wallet and you don't even signal that you have a gun, I'm probably gonna give it to you because I'm so scared of confrontation." Like, that's the world that we live in, man. That we have so many people like that.
Yeah, and they try to justify for it, make millions and countless of excuses.
Absolutely. Well, because that goes back to the ego thing. For them to acknowledge all these things that we just laid out would shatter their ego and make them have to come to terms with the fact that, to your words, they are a victim.
Yeah, they're a victim. It's just very wormish. It's weak. It's very weak. And like what you brought up, it's like when these worms look at a guy that is capable to do something to them, I feel like there's also, it's just like a gut feeling in their soul. It's almost like their ancestors are telling them, you're a bitch. Do not try or attempt to hurt this man, or else he'll dismember you from top to bottom.
Right.
Well, there are some people who will still make the mistake of starting a confrontation like that with someone who is trained. I think it was actually you who sent me one of those videos a while back where someone had started on a guy who was a trained fighter, and he just dusted him in about 2 seconds.
I remember this in the bar, right? Yeah. The guy was, but think. I remember that video. Think about that video. What was it? The guy who started the fight or whatever. What was unique about that situation? He was clearly drunk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The only time you have people like this willing to suppress that voice in the back of their head saying this man's a threat, don't even look at him sideways. The only time they're willing to just ignore that voice is when they have a little bit of liquor in them. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, yappity yap, you know? So.
And even the individual that we're talking about that I said he's a victim. When he drinks, I love him, but when he drinks, that's a whole nother guy. Absolutely. He's more confident. He talks back. He talks shit. You know, he thinks he can do something.
That's the him that he's always wanted to be.
Exactly. And I've tried to explain that to this individual as well. I'm like, bro, the guy that's drunk, him, that's a confident dude. That's an outgoing guy. I'm like, I know you drink a significant amount so you can feel like that. But it's like you can feel like that without all this shit. You can train, you can lift, everything. Start a business. I don't know. Do something.
This same individual, I specifically remember a story I was told after the fact. He got a bit of liquor in him, and after he had trained for a couple days, he was saying he could take on me and Seth one-on-one.
Yeah. Sparring. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I would have just accepted that. I'd be like, I'll see you when you're sober.
Well, let's
go to the gym.
Were you there when he said that? I know I wasn't.
Yeah, I was there.
You were there?
Well, I was texted that.
Oh.
I was not told that face to face. I don't think he would do that.
Yeah. But if you brought it up to him sober, he probably would act like he didn't send you that.
I don't remember that. What are you talking about, bro? Oh, well, here we go. I mean, we had a situation at towards the beginning of this year. We were in a group chat with a couple of our friends, and one of them just started calling me out, saying that he wants to spar me, like he's gonna come into 303. And I was like, yes, of course. Like, let me know. Like, I'm anytime.
When and where.
Yeah, when and where, dude. I was like, it doesn't even need to be there. I'm like, you just let me know. I'll let Devin know. We'll open up the gym. We'll go bang.
And then he just never said anything about it again, did he?
No, well, that's the thing. He kept bringing it up, like, oh, let's spar. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. When you want to do it? Oh, I don't know. But then there was a certain day that it kind of got serious in the group chat. He was like, oh, I could kick your ass. And he was saying that in front of all our other friends. But he texted me personally telling me, hey, bro, I'm just joking. Like, I don't actually want to spar you or nothing.
Wait, while the group chat was going on?
Well, the group chat was going on. So I took a screenshot and I sent it to the group chat. And I'm like, this is the energy he's actually putting out right now. I'm like, don't let him fool you. He's not. He knows what's going to happen if we get in a sparring match.
I don't think there's any greater checkmate to another man when the man's just like talking trash, like blah, blah, about anything, right? Than to just look at him here's a secret. You have to be completely in control of your emotions. You can't be shouting in his face, let's go fight. No. You just have to be like, oh, okay. Yo, bro, do you want to come spar with me? Let's go to let's come on. What, for what? Oh, we're just going to fight? It'll be fine. It'll be fun. It'll be a good time. Hey, come.
It'll be fun.
Come, right? All of a sudden, 99% of men, right, you see like tails tuck. Because they realize they're like, okay, well, hey, now I have to put up or shut up, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's literally the quickest way to checkmate other men. Because, like, in my mind, like, bro, like, I don't know. I've never been one to, I was gonna say I've never even wanted to talk crap. I absolutely talk crap to like friends who I like friends who are actually friends.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like it's just guys being guys, right? But if I don't like a dude, I'm not gonna sit here and like talk crap to him while the whole time I'm afraid of fighting him. I just won't say a word to you.
Yeah,
like I can bring more value into your life by saying words to you, and like, no, I just won't say anything to you, therefore no value communicated, right? So yeah, I feel like it's super interesting when people who have an issue with you are willing to just talk yappity yap, and then once you checkmate them, like, hey, come on, let's go fight, it'll be a good time, right? And like I said, right, you can't be emotional about it, you can't be in their face, you can't be the violent, especially me, I can't be the big black, angry guy. Like, no, there'll be none of that. I will be completely articulate and be like, let's go, let's get in the ring. It'll be a good time, And most of the time, like from what I've seen, people just cower about that, and it's interesting, man, because I truly feel that like mankind was greatest when we could just, at least men, when we could just figure things out, like with our fists. Like we don't need to like, I don't need to kill you, you don't need to kill me. Like we don't need to be angry about it, but like we could just
fight it out,
and then shake hands like men. And go about our day, right? But like that's not the world we live in anymore. Well, no. I still think on a primal level, that's a world that we live in, right? But on a more superficial level, people want to act like that's not the way that things should be addressed anymore. Even if you have two consenting adults, right?
Yeah.
So,
but that actually reminds me of something that Cesare brought up in an earlier video of ours. He had mentioned that basically for our friends, it's the same sort of thing. You're not really going to hear a whole lot of shit talk if you're not actually one of our friends. Right. Yeah. But for those who are our friends, and especially in the case of Cesare, if he sees that you're doing something wrong, he's going to call you out on it. But it's coming from a place of, I want you to do better than this, and I can see you doing better. So that's what, with the victim friend, he tends to catch a good amount of that stuff. But it's all coming from that place of, I want you to be better. Yeah. And I think that there's an interesting difference between a couple different types of men. The men who do that and the men who will actually talk a bunch of shit about other random people and then never say the faults of their...
Oh, okay.
No, well, yeah, they'll talk about other guys behind those people's backs, but then when it comes to their friends, they won't actually point out the faults of their friends in an effort to make them better. They will stay silent so that they don't hurt their feelings.
So those aren't your real friends. In my opinion, your real friends are going to be honest with you, tell you whatever you need to hear to level up and improve. Yeah. If your friend is like, oh, I don't want to tell you this because it'll hurt your feelings. What? Like hurt my feelings? Here's a better question. Will it make me better? Yes, then hurt my feelings. Screw my feelings. I'll get over my feelings, right? Give me the data, like help me improve. But going back to what you were saying, man, I that's another thing. I think it's hilarious that like we now live in a world where, men are willing to like talk behind somebody's back, right?
Like a female.
Like exactly. Like, oh, I'm just gonna gossip about this guy. Like, if I don't like you and I have something to say, I'll say it to your face and then let the chips fall where they may. Or so there's one or two alternatives. I don't like you and I just don't say anything about you. Behind your back to your face, you're irrelevant. You're wholly and entirely inconsequential. I'll never even think about you, right? Yeah. Or I don't like you and I have something to say and I'll say it to I'm not going to say it behind your back. I'll say it to your face, give you the chance to stutter over your words. and then, if we need to figure something out, we'll figure it out. Like I personally do not see the benefit in acting like, some other people with talking behind people's backs. I don't see the benefit in that.
It's a waste of energy. It's like you're giving your energy to these little things that it's not going to bring you any benefit. It's not going to make you any more money. It's not going to put you in a better mental health. You're not going to get in better shape. Mm-hmm. None of it. You get no benefits from it.
And if you find that your mind keeps on going to that place of judging all these other people, and if you're talking to all this shit about other people in your head or to your friends, that's probably just an indicator that you don't have enough going on yourself.
Yeah. You're investing too much time. Think about it. You're sitting there talking about another individual throughout the day, and that's your main talking points is talking shit or, doing stuff like that. It's like, bro, that's a sign of a worm.
What's a famous quote? People above you never waste time talking down to people below. Like, they just don't have the time for that. So anytime you have anybody trying to talk crap for you, they're literally telling you, I feel like I'm below you, and I just have to take pot shots up, because somebody above you, like, they're not even going to think about you. They're just going to walk past you. You'll be lucky if they even see you, right, or acknowledge your existence. So it's interesting, man. It really is.
But I like this talking point, because maybe about a month and a half ago, I had a couple of these females that friends. I had a couple of female friends, and they're like, it's just like, I see where you're trying to come from with the podcast. You're trying to help people, but it's like, you're so mean and like so blunt about it. She's like, you're not worried about hurting people's feelings. I'm like, that is the last fucking thing I care about. Because I'm not, like, they're over here like, whoa, like, you just talk like you're better than them and like you have more going on. I'm like, that's because that's the case. That's the truth. It's like, there's levels to this stuff. Just like with me, there's people above me. There's people at a way higher level than I'm at, that I'm trying to reach. But I'm not sitting here, like, if they were to come up to me and be like, well, this is what you're doing wrong, and like, trying to give me pointers, I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm not going to be worried about my feelings. You got to be logical. So to answer them, it's like, sure, it might be a little harsh to hear these things, but that's all because it's hurting your ego and your pride.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, it's the truth. And I'm only telling you these things so you can improve from it, not to bring you down. It's about perspective.
Mm-hmm. And that's just like a very basic example of this, is that the only person who's going to get mad at being called crazy is the crazy person, right? Absolutely. So if these words trigger an emotional reaction out of you, then perhaps you should take a step back, analyze why it's eliciting that reaction, and go about changing that aspect of yourself.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. It's just interesting to me. Like, this whole thing about, consider other people's feelings. I understand that, right? I think how do I say this? I think anything you say, I can say it in a way that is not rude, but I tend to be very direct, right? Yeah. So even with like my patients and my clients, then I'm like, okay, I'm never rude or disrespectful, but even being we live in a world where even being direct with people then can feel like, oh, this hurts my feelings because it's too direct, which, like I said, right, you're not using any slander, you're not cursing them out, you're not being disrespectful, you're not being rude, but you are being direct. And so, personally, in my job with my patients, my clients, I still then try to kind of, because the way I see it, usually with kind of, let's just say, someone on the street who I don't know from Adam, I'm going to be direct. I'm not going to consider your feelings. I'm just going to say what I need to say. But then with my patients and clients, in my mind, I'm like, listen, the way I justify it is this person is literally paying me, not just for my time, not just for my knowledge, but they're paying me to be able to like change up my verbiage, change up my kind of vernacular, my conversation, my words, to say it in a way that comes across in a little bit kind of less damaging to their ego. Even if that means, because what's the benefit of speaking directly? As something that I say with that I could say with 4 sentences, I can say it with 1 sentence because it's nice and direct, right? But then if I'm considering somebody's feelings, and then like it's time, and time is money, right? But now, like, that's what I'm saying, right? If a patient or client is paying me is literally paying me, then in my mind, they're also paying me for my time. So then I can take that very direct thing that I would have said and stretch it out to 4 or 5 sentences, say it in a way that massages their ego and hopefully still gets the point across. But in my opinion, absolutely, if somebody's not paying me, somebody isn't entrusting their health to me, I don't have a connection because somebody is my client or patient. They're just some, I don't know, person on Instagram who messages me, or somebody, in a grocery store who sees me. Like, listen, everybody has to be very smart about their time. We all have a certain amount of time on this earth. I'm not about to waste my time massaging your ego. I'm just gonna tell you what I need to tell you, right? It doesn't need to be cursing or slanderous or, objectively rude, but, it will be direct.
And these clients that you're talking about, so what exactly is that? Like, what do you do with them? That way these people...
So I have a business where I essentially help people improve their metabolic health. So metabolic dysfunction and the insulin resistance that accompanies it is behind a significant degree, a significant amount of morbidity and mortality in this country, the CDC actually keeps a running list of the top killers of Americans, and 7 out of the top 10 killers of Americans has a primary risk factor. 7 of the diseases that kill people, and not just diseases, but essentially all kind of ailments and calamities. 7 out of the top 10 have a primary risk factor of metabolic dysfunction. So yeah, it just basically, in a way that doesn't involve any medications. In fact, my approach helps people get off pills, right? Get off their high blood pressure pills, get off their, Viagra, sildenafil, their Cialis, their erectile dysfunction pills, get off their cholesterol pills, their pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes medications, and it's primarily from, attacking the root cause. I'm a very big fan of not necessarily putting a Band-Aid on the problem, which unfortunately I believe is what medication treatment is, when you're just telling people, hey, take this med for the rest of your life. Oh, you have high blood pressure, take lisinopril, 20 milligrams for the rest of your life. Like, what?
Yeah.
That's literally
I heard an analogy the other day, and I want to hear your take on it and see if you think it's accurate. But what I saw someone else liken it to like a check engine light turning on, and you taking that pill is basically like just turning off the check engine light, but it's not solving the problem.
I love that, dude. I'm stealing that. That's yeah. That's literally what it is. Yeah, it's not solving the root cause, right? Solving the root cause is getting under the hood, figuring out, okay, what sensor triggered the check engine light, and then let me fix the whatever issue is triggering the sensor. Absolutely, and that's how I think about the human body, right? I think that when we approach things like, oh, I'll take a pill for my blood pressure, I'll take a pill for my cholesterol, I'll take a pill for this, a pill for that. What we're essentially doing is approaching the human body as if it is disparate and separate parts, when in reality, I think that, we essentially are a beautifully made holistic system, and we have to consider the fact that what we do with one system affects others.
So with your history with doing combat sports and doing CrossFit, how has the mentality you built doing those things have bled into your everyday life and what you do with your work, even just, your first few steps in what you do in the morning?
Oh, it's bled into everything. I kind of, as I alluded to earlier, I feel like you learn a lot from Krav and zooming out from combat sports, period. And many of the things you learn from combat sports, you learn from CrossFit, right? Because trust me, CrossFit is a thing, at least for me, that'll get my heart rate up to literally, according to my devices tracking it, 195 beats a minute. Like, that will get me to essentially the top end, right?
Yeah.
So pushing into that pain cave just because I want to beat other people in the class and I want to beat my PR, my personal records. I think that whether it's lessons like that derived from CrossFit, or lessons derived from combat sports, or lessons derived from, men who have higher stature than you, than me, than Dev. I think that at least me, I feel like a lot of things in life feed into each other, and many of the lessons and values that you get from one thing, if you're smart enough and you can think outside of the box, you realize can be applied to many other things and will lead to success with many other things,
Yeah.
For example, we were talking earlier about, this whole quote and mindset that hard work pays off, and it's all about just hard work, and double down. Personally, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that, it needs to be hard work mixed with being efficient. Now, at first, you shouldn't only focus on being efficient. I think at first you should focus on doing enough hard work where you can get enough feedback as it pertains to your results from putting in the work, where you can get enough feedback from putting in the hard work. But then now you get the feedback, you get the results, and then hopefully you look at the results and you refine your technique, you make yourself more efficient, and then you essentially double down on your hard work with an efficient workflow and an efficient approach, which then can obviously lead to kind of, exponential progress. So yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah. And for you guys out there, like, if you're trying to make a change in life and you don't know quite where to start, for me, what helped me build my discipline was when I started doing the boxing training. Absolutely. That really, like we brought it up earlier, it keeps you honest. When you go in there and you train and you spar, it shows the exact results of the amount of work you've been putting in, like I said, prior to the following weeks that were coming up, right? And it bleeds in like with the work that we're doing. We have our normal work that we're making our income in right now, and then we have other businesses that we're trying to start up. Like that, you need to have discipline with that. It's got to be a consistent thing with this YouTube stuff, posting these videos. It's got to be consistent. And like with that, like martial arts has helped me just build that discipline and just build that mental resilience towards like life itself. Especially like for me, it's like going back to sparring even especially when you're going to go, like we've sparred our trainer multiple times. And it's like, we know damn well we're going to get our ass whooped, but it's just like you said, you're going to get a little bit better. We're going to walk out with like more information, more data, just a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. And he humbles you too. He provides us that reality check. Because the last time that we sparred him, the both of us, left ourselves a bit too open, and he caught us right where we needed to get caught. Yeah. And I was dazed. I thought I was about to get knocked the fuck out. I'm like, well, here we go. But then that's also, because he is, he's so experienced with this that he can tell, okay, I just dazed him, so now I'm going to pivot, hit his body. Yeah. He's still going to, continue to get humbled, but I'm not going to knock him out.
Yeah, the whole point of sparring is not to knock the other guy out. It's like the best way he explained it to me was like, you want to find the openings, whatever they're leaving opening, and continue to hit them where they're open. That way, now, okay, cool. Now I'm getting hit here all the time. Now I know I'm leaving this open. So there. Now I got to do this, It's more technique. It's to learn. It's to just put all the skills you've learned, hitting the bag, hitting the pads, against someone. That's what sparring is.
It's synthesizing, right?
Yeah.
You can't just, in anything, we learn individual components, right? Whether it's sparring or even in medicine, right? In med school, right? We learn individual things, but really a master is able to take all these individual things and synthesize them and essentially approach a problem with kind of the amalgamation of all the different things that they've learned. Yeah. And I think, Cesar, you brought up a really good point earlier with discipline, right? I think that's the main thing for me, right? Med school taught me that. CrossFit taught me that. Combat sports taught me that. But that's the thing that I notice with enough people, people who are struggling in any regard. That's the one thing that I notice people are just missing. Like they don't have discipline. And I'm like, they're very whimsical. They're like, oh, I don't feel like doing that, therefore I'm not going to do it. Like
exactly.
I'm sorry, what? Like your feelings are inconsequential. You should not care how you feel waking up on any given morning in terms of that should not be the main determinant of whether or not you're going to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
You should do what you need to do if you told yourself that you're going to do what it takes to achieve the goals that you want, right? That's what discipline plays a part in. So the lack of discipline has shown itself in society in so many different ways. And I think, for people who are very perceptive and observant and perspicacious, they're going to pick up on that and be like, okay, well, I need to work on my discipline. And as we're talking about, there are many different ways to cultivate and to refine and to improve your discipline. There's not just one way, but running away from it and saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna, I don't know, stay home all day and play video games." Like, here's the thing: I'm not even knocking video games. I used to play I love video games growing up, but you will not find me. I haven't played video games in the last 5 years, right? And it's because at least in my mind, I realize that's not an adequate and acceptable application of my time. It simply isn't. It's a waste of my time, right?
Yeah.
So, I do think, absolutely, as a man, you can definitely get to a point when you're ultra successful where you can just game all day. But you need to get there, climb the mountain, right? Mm-hmm. Don't chill at the bottom of the mountain and play, video game. You need to climb the mountain, achieve adequate success. And then if you want to default to that, you can.
Yeah.
And to add on to kind of both of those points with the whole discipline thing, you said you first really acquired the discipline piece with this whole boxing thing, right?
Well, I would say it definitely started for me more when I was playing football. I moved during high school, I moved to a new school. So when I did that, I was suspended for almost half of the season my sophomore year. So that's when I really started to realize, okay, like I love this game because I'm literally just showing up to practice just to practice. Like I know I'm not playing this week. And that was like a 2-month process for me. So that's when I started to realize, okay, like, you know, I can be disciplined. You know, that's when I started to like really think about applying discipline into my life like that. I was like, you know, like I'm not having fun right now, just practicing. Like it's starting to piss me off because there's guys playing that are dog shit. And and I'm dogging on them doing practice all day, and the coaches are seeing it, everybody's seeing it. But yeah, that's what really kind of kept me in football was like I kind of just had to build that self-discipline. Like, okay, like I know there's gonna be an end point where I will suit up, you know, for a Friday night game. So I just got to keep going. It's just a matter of time. So that's how it kicked off. It didn't quite fully sink in until the very beginning of this year, I'll say towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, after I had results shown to myself based off like how my female was acting with me. I knew that I was doing something wrong. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm not disciplined enough. I was like, I need to do more. And then, yeah.
Well, what I wanted to kind of add in here is, so for me, I started resistance training with weights about 9 years ago, I want to say now. And I've never, you know, been at a point where I've just been like super consistent the whole way through 5 days a week for years and years and years. I always had my points where I kind of fell off the wagon a little bit, and maybe I spent like 2 weeks out of the gym, or maybe I only went 1 or 2 times in the span of 3 or 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. But every time that ever happened, because I've been doing it for so long, if I go a certain length of time without stepping foot in the gym, and now that applies to boxing as well, I feel like a fraud in my soul, in my bones. I feel like I'm losing because I'm not doing the things that I know are super beneficial for me.
I would argue against that. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that those things are now part in your mind, are now part of your identity. So that is a
far better way to
so when you're not partaking in them, you literally don't feel like yourself. And the same thing happens with me, man.
Because we were going through that, like we were talking about this earlier today and yesterday, and that's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah. No, I have the same feeling, man. When I go to the gym for a while, I feel not only do I start like getting achy and like sore, like bro, I'm like weird things are happening in my body, right?
Right.
And
yeah.
and that's the greatest like paradox. Like this is why I don't understand people who are like, I'm not gonna go to the gym because I don't want to be sore. Like, no. Like in reality, the life that you live now, like it's all about perspective, right? The people who are not working out, in their mind, the way that they feel is the best way that they can feel. And it's not.
Yeah.
They just don't know better. Like if they knew better, they'd be like, yo, this is trash. I need to move, right? I fundamentally believe, I'm sure you guys do too, human beings were meant to move. Like we talked about earlier, right? Doesn't need to be CrossFit, but it needs to be something. I don't care if it's power walking or Pilates or Zumba. pick something, find something, right? So human beings were meant to move. So obviously, like everyone here, like we all love combat sports, right? Me, I like CrossFit, like for sure. If I don't go to CrossFit for 2 days, bro, I'm messed up. Like I'm absolutely messed up. And
it's like almost like it's almost like an addiction, dude. It's like you go with you deal with withdrawals from it.
Yep. Like and it's literally because of identity, man. We all have things that we associate with ourselves in our own perception so strongly that when we stray away from those things, it's almost like we have this inertia, we have this resistance in our brain and our minds that are pulling us back to that. And here's the thing, that's actually a good thing. Because think about that, right? What does that mean for everyone at this table if that's how we are when we don't work out? Does that mean in the future, would that kind of bias us towards continuing to work out? Or would that bias us towards one day we're just going to stop working out and get fat and unhealthy? That biases you towards continuing to work out, right? It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, just getting bigger and bigger and growing more momentum, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah, man, I think ultimately it's that momentum in your favor is a huge thing. And there was a point in time, and I'm sure you with football, you with combat sports, me with CrossFit, I literally tell people this. Whenever I see people at the gym, at my CrossFit gym, who are brand new, the biggest piece of advice that I tell them is just keep coming. And they're like, what do you mean by that? And I tell them, I'm like, listen, you're going to hate this for literally an entire year. Every day you're going to come in, you're going to feel sore from the day before. You're going to have people like me putting triple the numbers that you put up on the board. I'm going to put that up on the board. That's going to make you feel some sort of way. Ignore that. That's irrelevant, right? Focus on you. Focus on the advancements and the progress that you're making. And there will come a time, I can't tell you when it's going to be. For me, it took like a year and a half, where now that's associated with your identity. And now, instead of it being very easy to miss a day, it's hard for you to miss a day. Like you want to get back into it, right? And even if it's painful to get back into it, the congruence with your identity is a bigger piece for you than being, incongruence with your identity and not necessarily doing that. So it's like me right now. Like if I were just I don't know, dude, I don't know, to stop lifting, stop exercising, drink every day, smoke every day, I would literally feel like I don't even know who I am. I'd be like, who? First of all, I'd probably like have like fat jiggling, as I walk down the stairs, and that would like snap me out of it. I'd be like, what is this on me? What is this thing that's jiggling, right? And then number two, right? I would just like not feel good, right? You just don't feel like your best self. So, I think anything we pick is going to be hard. With combat training, there are going to be days after where you feel sore, you feel messed up. I'll tell you right now, with CrossFit, with the workout we did today, I sit here, like my left lower back is like not in pain, but it's aching. I'm sore all over the place. Guess what? 9 a.m. tomorrow, guess where I'm going to be?
CrossFit.
At the gym. Yeah. I don't care how I feel. It's a habit. I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do it. So, yeah, I think, that building that discipline and that iron mind is absolutely of consequence, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. With one thing that stood out for me was like one of the sparring sessions I had a while ago, I got beat pretty bad. Yeah. And like it was one of those things that I'm like sitting here, I'm like, why the hell am I doing this to myself, right? I'm like, why am I getting punched in the face for fun? And I'm like, I kind of like the feeling of it. I was just disappointed that I didn't get the results I wanted, but I came back the following days, the following week, and still continued to spar. You got to build that mental resilience, because after that moment, I felt a little bit more improved. And then I did better the next time sparring, and then better the next time. And it's just going to continue.
And the mental resilience is one part of it, right? But I think another part of it that many people ignore, and I tell this to people in CrossFit and in the CrossFit class all the time, right? And they look at me, they're like, this dude Nick is just a nerd. And I'm like, bruh, it makes sense to me. I'm sorry that you don't understand it, right? But the human body is a stimulus adaptation machine in all regard, right? Yeah. Like, so whether that's combat, whether that's CrossFit, whether that's powerlifting and bench pressing, squatting and deadlifting, the reason why we're doing all these things is because we're giving our body just enough of a stimulus where we know that on a physiological level, there's going to be adaptation. And that adaptation is always more often than not, a positive adaptation. So that one day that you're like, why am I doing this to yourself? Or why am I doing this to myself? You underwent a stimulus where you got your ass kicked, and then you went to bed. And over sleep, right, there are connections, especially in our cerebellum, there are connections all over our brain that are made, that are essentially replaying all of those fights, and you're learning. Like, you're literally adapting to wherever you got caught, wherever you made a mistake. You're making the adaptations much less likely rather that you will get caught with those same moves in the future. You're more likely now, because you have a broader experience, to perceive whatever is happening and be like, okay, all right, Dev's trying to set me up. I see what's happening. Like, no, it's not going to happen today, right? So it's all about, like, the human body. We are ultimately a stimulus adaptation machine. That's why personally, like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen, but I've always seen like those older guys on YouTube. Like, there's this one Russian dude on YouTube who's like 61, 62. This man is yoked. This man is huge, and he's still fit, and he's still doing all these things. And in my mind, that makes sense. And the reason why that makes sense is because, sure, he hit late 50s, he hit early 60s, but he didn't tell himself, well, I'm in my late 50s, I'm just going to hang it up and lay on the couch, and because guess what? Stimulus adaptation. So the way that we can positively adapt, we can also negatively adapt. Yeah. If you're just, oh, I'm doing all this stuff and staying active, and then one day I'm just going to hang it up and chill on the couch every day, you're going to atrophy. Your muscles are going to atrophy. The connections in your brain that were critical for optimal output at whatever your endeavor was, those things are going to atrophy, right? So the best thing that you can do, at least in my opinion, is when you start doing something, you got to keep, especially when you see improvement, keep going, right? Don't listen to that voice in your head that wants to be lazy, because, you know, I tell my patients and my clients all the time, there is no such thing. We all have this I've heard so many people be like, oh, well, I'm just going to maintain wherever I am. There's no such thing. Yeah. There's either very slow gain, it could be very slow, right, above maintaining. There could be very small loss. There could be a huge loss. And then maybe if you're a newbie, right, then if you're a newbie, there could be a huge gain. But otherwise, for most people, it's a very small gain, right? But there's this whole thing of, oh, we're just going to maintain and stay constant. That's not a thing. You're either gaining or you're losing. You need to accept that. And if you can accept that, then more often than not, you're going to make the best decisions on a daily basis to maintain what you have, right? Because nobody wants to lose what they have.
Yeah.
I think something that keeps people who haven't exercised before out of the gym is the fear of the massive commitment. You know, these people, they see these people who are in good shape, and these people talk about how it took them like 7, 8, 9 years to get to where they are now. And that's extremely daunting to someone who's never stepped foot in the gym. And I think they want to be able to just achieve a good physique and then not have to do anything else to keep it or continue to
improve. You got to maintain it. You got to retain that.
You're completely right, Dev. The best way to combat that type of mindset is to let them know 7 years from now, 7 years has passed. 7 years is going to go by. You can't stop it. You can't stop time. It's going to go by regardless, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to put the requisite time into those 7 years so that 7 years from now or whenever, right, you have results that you're proud of? Or are you going to 7 years from now look back at the last 7 years and be like, damn, I really wish I would have gotten in the gym 7 years ago?
Right.
You're going to be that. Who are you going to choose to be? Because, yeah, absolutely, man. Like CrossFit, for example. I've now been doing CrossFit for 14 years. 14 years. If you would have told me in 2010, you know, hey, this is going to take you these many years to get really good, in my mind, right, I think another good approach to this is you just got to just put 1 foot, like stop looking at 3 miles as 3 miles. Just tell yourself, it's just putting 1 foot in front of the other over and over and over and being consistent. That's all it is. And that 3 miles will eventually happen, right? You can't just think about it as 3 miles. You just got to think about it as consistently putting your foot or 1 foot in front of the other. So, yeah, that's a very interesting mindset that I hear some people share, and personally, I don't necessarily agree with it. And this listen, we've now ventured into another part of the conversation that I think is critical, right? I've noticed this in terms of making or breaking people, mindset. Literally, people having the improper mindset will do just enough to prevent because what's the only thing that can cause change and improve? Action. But the fundamental basis of all action is thoughts. And then the fundamental basis of thought are beliefs. And then obviously beliefs is associated with mindset, right? So, I think one of the best things you can do for somebody is dissuade them of kind of poor and maladaptive mindsets. And people have a lot of so sometimes the talks you need to have with people, like to get them on the right path, like this whole crap, like, oh, I'm going to, it'll take me so long. It'll take me 7 years to get good at this, man. I don't know if I should start. Like, I would just have a conversation with that dude. I'd be like, you think you're God? Can you stop time? Oh, so if you don't start, then, the 7 years won't happen? Like,
yeah.
How, where does your mind even go? How does your mind, how is that a rationale, right? There's no logic in that when you actually sit down and break it down.
Yeah, absolutely. But since we talked about that, given that you're in the 1% of physiques, especially out here in the States, how does that apply? Like just having a good physique, being a doctor, being tall, help you with the dating market. Like, how is the dating market for you?
I mean, it never really has been super hard, but you have to keep in mind, I think, I think that, how do I say this? I don't know. There's no good way to say this. women are a distraction. They're like fundamentally, I believe like if you're the type of dude who like I'm not saying I love women. I love people who I've dated and I've absolutely been in love before. But I fundamentally believe that kind of as a man you should have higher aspirations than like
just going after women.
Absolutely, the guys who just like all they do is go after girls. I'm like, really? That's your main goal? Like,
yeah.
Bro, get away from me. I'm like, don't even hit the button.
Hurrah.
Like it's just like what the hell? I'm like you are a waste of space. Get out of my face. You know.
I completely agree.
But yeah, no, I think that and then I appreciate the comments about the body, but personally, like I'm not a bodybuilder. I've literally never cared about and focus only on my body. I instead focus with CrossFit and even combat sports on performance. I fundamentally believe if you focus on performance and you are consistent enough, like I have pictures of me in the gym in CrossFit from 2012, 2013. I literally look the same as I do now, except it's literally like somebody just put a couple more layers of muscle over the same muscles, right? So they're just kind of, so it isn't like, it's never been like bodybuilder big, and I'll never be a bodybuilder big. That's not kind of my goal, right? But I think that when you chase performance and chase functionality and focus on the numbers and the data, like, dude, even in the gym, so I have this sensor that's a velocity-based training sensor that literally tells me, okay, when I do a deadlift or I do a power clean or I do a snatch, this is exactly how many meters per second the barbell moved. And then if you do a derivative on that, this is how much power output it moved, 20 inches, the displacement, the bar path. And I personally keep track of all this data because fundamentally I believe that, like I said, right, if you focus on performance, you focus on functionality, that over time, the gains will come. I've always been a big believer, don't focus on results. When it comes to anything, I'm not focused on results, like screw results. What I care more about are habits, behaviors, and actions.
Yep.
Now, don't get me wrong, you can absolutely reflect on the results, right? So you can be consistent with the behaviors, the actions, the mindset, and everything you need to do. And then you can, take a look at your body, for example, after a couple months and be like, oh, okay, cool. Body fat percentage went down, muscle mass went up. I'm stronger on my bench press, clean, blah, 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 all this stuff. But that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be, at least in your mind, like what is the most effective application of actions that from a time standpoint are most efficient with my time, right? This is morbid, and I've told some patients this, and I faithfully believe this, but as you look at me and I look at you, imagine that we all have a clock, an invisible clock above our heads. And that clock is ticking down to the moment that you die, right? So what does that tell you? If you have an invisible clock and it's just ticking down, that tells you, hopefully, that every second you have on this planet is valuable. Exactly. So if you understand that, then you should also understand, at least in my mind, time is more valuable than money. Everything that you can do. This even goes back to what I was talking about earlier, right? With being direct. Being direct saves me a bunch of time. I'm not wasting precious seconds of my life that are gonna go by anyway. Being nice and thinking about your feelings and wasting my time with them. Being direct and saving time, and then hopefully we can get to the conclusion of the conversation, right? So I think ultimately when it comes to kind of body or any other goals and aspirations, you always need to think from an efficiency standpoint. That's why I track. Anybody who sees me in the gym and knows me, like I'm all about I'm all about the numbers and the data, and I track these things with a primary purpose of maximizing my efficiency of time and kind of application. So, yeah, man.
Yeah. For the fuck boys out there, that's another thing too, man. I've had so many females sit here and be like, oh, well, you're telling women not to behave in certain ways. Why aren't you telling the guys? I am. I'm telling them to go do some physical. Go start a business. Go find a way to make more money. Go find a way to improve.
Telling them to ignore you and focus on self-improvement.
Exactly. That's the message I'm trying to spread. And then for the women, it's like just choose the best option. Yeah. That's it. But yeah, no. Yeah, I've had some interesting things come up with this shit. Like the biggest thing the biggest problem the girls have with the ladies' night is the guy having a guy best friend. They completely lose their mind over that.
Yeah, the best friend one. So I don't have any female friends. None at all. I refuse to. Like, I literally don't. I literally do not. I will not label a female as a friend and then hang out with her on, because I think it's muddy waters from what I've seen, from what I personally experienced, where like girls will be like, oh, let's be friends, and then a couple weeks or a couple months down the line, like they will either say or do something that makes it very clear that they were hoping that it went into something more with me, right? And I'm like, it's just not. It's not a good idea, in my opinion. So, I obviously know, a lot of women. But I think there's a difference between an acquaintance and a friend. It's been a personal belief of mine. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there was a time when I was like a teenager, when I was like most other guys, like, let me be this girl's friend. She's gonna eventually see the light and like me. And then, like, as a man, like as you grow, you start to realize, like, no, like, Don't waste your time with that. That's a waste of time, right? If she's gonna pick some inferior guy because she has bad taste in men, who the hell am I to tell her anything different? Like, go be with that dude. No worries. I just, but ultimately, from what I've seen, from girls that the whole female friend thing, they can never, at least in my experience, they can never keep at that line and kind of just be completely okay with just being friends. And personally, I actually thought about this. I think the only woman who most men, including myself, can truly be friends with are incredibly unattractive women. Like, if you are just like completely, like you're just completely, you are the exact opposite of his type. Yeah, he can be your friend because there's absolutely no interest in anything beyond that. You could get him completely drunk and he'd still look at you and be like, no, right? so yeah, I think that's the only women that a guy can truly be friends with. But other than that, especially if a woman's very attractive, then you as a guy saying, oh, I want to be her friend, that's disingenuous, you're lying. And here's the biggest issue is you're wasting your time. The time that you're putting into her, you could find another woman who sees the value that you convey and that you communicate, and then is willing to kind of, take that further. But instead, you want to perseverate and just fixate on this one woman who, yeah, she might be a 10 out of 10, but there are 10 out of 10s, not 10 out of 10s, right? 10 out of 10s are rare. But there are 8 out of 10s and 9 out of 10s. There are very attractive women literally everywhere, right? And unfortunately, at least in my opinion, that's a downside of from the plastic surgery industry to makeup to essentially cosmetics, period, is that we essentially have women who are not that attractive, who are now able to be more attractive than they really are, and then fool the male gaze and have you thinking, no, this, she's the one, or she's the one I want to pursue and go for it, right? But ultimately what I'm saying is that I don't understand men who fixate on only one girl and, oh, she's the only one for me. Like, there's no point in doing that, right? If a woman doesn't see your value, cut it off. Like, you're a man, cut it off and move on. Don't sit here and I'm going to be her friend. Are you stupid? You're wasting your time. Like, there's just no point in that. And to be honest, like, clearly you can tell this pisses me off. But literally those men, I will literally notice them. And if they're my friend and I notice that, guess who's not my friend anymore? That is a hill I will die on. I will literally notice that. I will literally notice that in another man and be like, yo, you're cut off. Like, we cannot be friends. Because here's the downside. A man like that, what do you think? Do you think he would be willing or unwilling to throw you under the bus for a chance at that woman?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. My point being, so I think it was a short that we dropped. It's maybe been a week. And it was a clip of me saying that it's not good to be friends with guys that can't get their own girls. Essentially, for the same reason that you just mentioned, is that they're going to go after one of yours, and if they have to backstab you and throw you under the damn bus for it, they will.
Absolutely.
So
They're dangerous, man. Those are literally the most dangerous type of men. While the most trustworthy type of men are like other guys who like you could have a smoking like an absolute gorgeous girlfriend, 10 out of 10, and you could leave her with them in a cabin in the woods for 3 days because you had to go back to the city. I don't know. Make up your hypothetical situation. But basically, you trust your guy friends that much that nothing will happen, right? That even if she is, for whatever reason, pushing up on them, they will absolutely reject it because they have honor and integrity as your friends, right? You cannot trust. I agree. I didn't even hear this podcast, but I agree with that. I refuse to be good friends with men who cannot attract women. Like that says a lot about what you are most likely willing to do when you finally do get a glimmer of hope. Yeah. You're willing to just destroy me, backstab me, like, and we're over here talking, you know, like, okay, maybe lose some money or whatever. But there have been men there in the history of mankind, men have died because other men have backstabbed them in a situation that related to a woman. Yeah. Like men have literally died over this, right? Just because they didn't have the forethought or foresight to evaluate the quality of their male friends. Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to clarify that because we got some comments and they were just like, what he's saying doesn't make sense. Like, I disagree with him. What does he mean by this? And like, this is what I mean by this.
One of the comments was basically saying they were basically making fun of you for, quote, being hung up. Well, because the example that you had given was a personal anecdote in which a friend of yours had gone after one of your exes while you were still friends with him. Yeah. Right?
And this was like a small time after we had split. And she's the one that came to me and let me know about it.
Right. And the comment in question was basically saying that you shouldn't be hung up on your ex and that you shouldn't be worried about who gets with her when that's not exactly the issue at hand.
Yeah, that wasn't my problem. That wasn't my problem. It could have been a completely random guy, and I wouldn't have given it a shit.
Yeah,
but since it's someone within my group, my thought process is, okay, so all those times that I was with her, that we were together, he's been sitting there hanging out with us, having second thoughts about, you know?
Because it's also another thing if you and a girl break up, and then your friend comes to you and says, hey, is it okay if I ask her out? But this guy in question didn't do that, and that's why it's a problem.
Even that's wormish.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, that's what I was about to say. Even if he did that, I would, like, I'm sorry, but any woman who your friend has been with should be off limits.
I would say that a guy who comes to you and asks about that, it shows to me that he at least is still moral, but he's making an error in judgment in my view.
Yeah, because he's prioritizing his potential relationship with her over his relationship with you as a friend. Yeah. It's not smart. But no, I mean, whoever told you that, I actually agree with that. I've always had that belief that, you know, you should not know. I personally don't know anything about my exes. I don't, like, I feel that from a kind of healing standpoint, emotional healing standpoint, you shouldn't know. Like, I don't understand men who are like, oh yeah, I know where my ex is, who she's dating. Like, of course you do, because you're still hung up on her.
Exactly.
Right? Like, so yeah, no, but by the same token, in your defense, yeah, if a good friend of mine, I find out that a good friend of mine is dating my ex, I don't know. I just evaluate that through the lens of, would I do that to any friend of mine?
Exactly.
And the answer is no. So when it's done to me, I'm like, trash. Like there's something off about you, you know?
Yeah. And like I've been put in that same situation where one of my close buddies' ex tried to get me to go over to a party, and it's like the first thing I did is screenshot that shit, sent it over to him. I'm like, bro, what the hell is this about? But yeah, that's all I really had to speak on a dating thing. I don't really got much to add more on that. As far as, like, I just wanted to clarify it from another POV that, like, if you don't get girls, bro, and you got a guy in your group that does not get girls, you're going to see results with that. You know, he's going to cock block you. He's going to try to go for girls that you go for or that you've gone for or have had. Trust me when I tell you this. I'm speaking from experience.
Or there's going to be jealousy towards you because of the quality of women that you can attract and he cannot.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's a dangerous game to play. Like you mentioned earlier, there's simps. And there's simps that will take it to a whole other level than you're expecting. And it's unexpected most of the time. They're not going to come up to you and be a man and be tell you how they feel, and then you guys are gonna bang it out. And like, nah.
I think that was an off-camera conversation, so don't feel like you guys missed that. That was off-camera.
Yeah.
But Dr. Nick, it's been a fantastic conversation. We are very happy we could have you out on here.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it was awesome being here. I appreciate the conversation with you guys.
And stay tuned for part 2 because we will have him back.
Yeah, we'll have him back. We'll get into some more of his career topics over here, and then we will have a ladies' night coming out very shortly. So you guys stay tuned for that. I'm gonna try to spice it up. Now, for those of you watching, please don't hate me, okay? But I'm gonna be just a bit more blunt and direct, like Mr. Dr. Nick here. Trust me. My time is valuable. I can't beat around the bush anymore. I got money to do. I got money to gain. I gotta conquer the fucking earth. I gotta represent for my bloodline.
But I know I definitely learned a lot today in the last little under 2 hours, and I hope you guys did too. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the video. Leave a like and subscribe.
Yeah, and add some questions down there that you want us to ask him for the next video. All right.
Love being here.
Wait, shout out your. You want to shout out your platforms?
Platforms is just the Fittest doc on pretty much everything, right? I almost never post on Twitter. Instagram is the main thing. YouTube, Shorts, Facebook. There's going to be some other doctor-only platforms that are coming up soon enough that I've been asked to be on. But, yeah, just the Fittest doc, all one word.
All right. And we'll put that in the description down below, guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for watching.
Run it. I can't take no loss. I don't even know what it costs. I hit the ground, then I go